11:21 on July 11th. Edition of Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota, and over at DougPagittRadio.com. You can find it there, and if you're connecting over on Facebook, we'd love to have you share the fact that you're a liker and a fan of the show. So go over to Doug Pagitt Radio on Facebook and let us know that you're involved in the show. And if you'd like to join the chat room, you can do that over at DougPagittRadio.com as well. There's people who are having another conversation that goes along with the show. So, and you can also get the archives there. You can load in the podcasts and all the rest of it. In fact, we're picking up a new podcast sponsor this week. So you can find out all of that by getting the podcast over there at DougPagittRadio.com. Now, I have a book coming out in the next 3 weeks called Church in the Inventive Age. So one of the things that I do with my life is I try to consult with churches and with organizations and write and speak and try to come up with interesting ways for people to reorganize or to newly organize or to, for the first time, organize their lives, their churches, what they're doing as religious people and Christian people in this world. And really it connects to that conversation I was having in the last segment, that what we all want to do is we all want to live our lives in ways that emulate the story of God, right? Everybody I know wants to live out the story of God in one way or the other. Now, some people are more into God and less into God. Some people don't think there's any God to be emulating, so that's what they want their life to reflect. However it gets put together, people want the view that people have of God and ends up infusing and focusing and structuring the way that they live their lives. And I think that it would be better if we thought betterly about God, because it actually impacts how we live. Now, I think that makes religion a public enterprise. Not just because we should do it in public, but because what we think religiously actually organizes and influences the way that we live, so it matters. Now, there's no record of human history of human civilization that doesn't have an active component of religion and God in it. That's just part of the history. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Some people think, well, we're evolving, we're moving, we're going to another world now. Things in 1,000 years aren't going to involve any of the superstitions of God and all that. And I don't know. Well, I don't know. I guess 1,000 years will have to determine that. I don't think that's where it's going. I don't think that's the case. I think we are people who are engaging with the God of the universe, and we're doing our very best to understand that as we can. And so the way that we organize our churches really does have impact on the kind of societies that we're going to have. So as someone who sees themselves as a societal participant and part of societal revolution, I think the way that we lead our churches and the way we organize our churches and our synagogues and our mosques and our temples and all the ways that people meet religiously actually has great influence and great impact on the kind of society we live in. So whether I'm doing stuff in my own life or talking on a radio show about how we should think about the love of God for people no matter what they've done, or the books that I want to write, like Church in the Inventive Age, that tries to advocate for a particular way for churches to organize, it all hopefully has impact in the world that we live in the real life world that we find ourselves in. And it's not just for personal spirituality or for personal piety. It's not just for me to find my own path and my own way in this world. It really is an effort for me to try to make a contribution into the collective life of being a citizen of my street and city and state and country and the world that we live in. So I want to push my book on you because I think it makes the world better. So how about that? So you wrap all that together and I can say my book will make the world better. All by itself. Okay, so here's the story on this book. So let me just take a couple of minutes and sort of push it on you. And maybe you have a friend that you'd buy this book for. Maybe you'd buy a case of them for the people at your church. Maybe the rest of it's going to be available August 1st. Here's my argument in the book. That the United States is living in its fourth cultural epoch. Really North America, you could even say. I don't want to speak for all the world because I don't need to, but I'll speak for North America, that we're in our fourth epoch. And I call these four epochs ages. So there's the agrarian age, there's the industrial age, there was the information age, and now what I'm calling the inventive age. And I think that each of those four periods, and they'll last anywhere from, 200 years to 50 years sort of in their period. But each one of those ages, the agrarian age, the industrial age, the information age, and the inventive age, they each have a way that they organize culturally. And by that, I mean how people think and what they value, the aesthetics they appreciate, and the tools that they use.
Your anthropologist is showing here.
Yeah, so I'm nerding out on my anthropology. So a shout out to all of you anthropology and cultural studies majors in the world. So I think that human beings have organized themselves, and in North America, people have organized themselves in 4 epochs where they think in a particular way, they have a certain set of values, a certain kind of aesthetics they appreciate, and then tools that they use. And when you get enough change in all 4 of those areas, that cumulative change produces a new age or epoch, new period. So we all know that you move from the agrarian age into the industrial age. And when that happened, churches made a dramatic shift from agrarian churches that were in rural areas primarily, because the whole thing was rural. There wasn't really rural. Everything was just
non-city.
Agrarian age, yeah. There wasn't even a city yet, right? So you come out of this agrarian age, and in the middle 1700s to middle 1800s, you have a move across Europe and the United States into industrialization. And when that happens, it becomes increasingly urban. The whole urban landscape is developed for the first time, where 1 million people are living within walking distance of the first time. And there's a new way of organizing around industry and around factories. And so in the United States, when the church had to transition from a culture of agrarian age into a culture of the industrial age, people lived differently. And now you didn't have churches that were 1 or 2 per village or city. Now you have 4 or 5 of them on the same corner or right down the street from one another. So you now have this huge amount of competition going on between different kinds of churches. Well, then that transitions into and that period was sort of the heyday for denominational churches. Then you transition into the information age, out of the industrial age, and now it's no longer what you make, but it's what you know. So a whole set of churches started to develop around that cultural understanding. Not that you're in a factory and you're living in an urban environment and you're producing things the way the denominational churches did, but you live in a suburban environment and it's what you know. So the role of the pastor changes, and we organize churches in whole new ways, and evangelical and Pentecostal churches come onto the scene during that time. And that lived for 50 years, and now that's transitioning again into what I call the inventive age. So the book is an argument to say just as we transition from the agrarian culture in church into the industrial age culture in church, into the information age culture in church, we're in the midst of a transition again into this inventive age church, and I try to describe what that age is like and how people whose churches were created in the previous 3 periods could actually have a role to play and what they could be about in the inventive age. So it's kind of saying this is all still going. It's not that the new age is better. It's just ours, and it is what it is, and we should figure out how to engage in it. So I've written a book to try to help churches think about and be organized in ways that are as appropriate for our age as for any, because I think it actually has a significant contribution to the kind of world that we want to live in. So Church in the Inventive Age, changing the world, one book at a time. As I like to refer to it, the book that changed everything. I mean, if the iPhone can be the phone that changed everything, I think Church in the Inventive Age can be the book that changes everything. All right, so that's Doug Pagitt Radio. A little promotion for its own product, Church in the Inventive Age, available August 1st at the finest book retailers, online and in stores. We'll be back after this break here with natural health coach Shelley Pagitt. Is going to be giving us the health tip of the week. Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota.